Episode 61.
Hi again, everybody. I'm former educator and current media producer guy Paul Hart, your host, and this is the podcast, Life's Learning Curve. We're in season 4 of this podcast, and we're proud to be here. Our guests and I here use personal stories to underscore just how we got to be us. We're a composite of people, events, and all the places we've experienced throughout our lives. This is how we became a better us. It's ongoing throughout our life, change and learning, right? When I redirected my career into education and teaching, there was no super technology yet. I became a technology type guy. But at that time, there were no computers in the classroom yet, no internet, no videos. As I said, computer videos, the cameras, they weren't in the classroom yet. But what there was outdoor education. And true to its name, it was outdoors, and there was education to this process, and great value. When fun activities met out of the classroom learning situation, outdoor education. When I was in elementary school, my school, the 6th graders went to camp for about 5 school days and 4 nights. And we all really looked forward to it. And for most of us, the people I talked to, my friends and acquaintances these days that were there back then, they still remember quite a few stories from all those years ago at camp. Camp muxed our environment. The traditional classroom was exchanged for a placement literally out in the woods. Let's talk about it. Let's get going. Sebastian.
Okay, here we go.
Life's Learning Curve. I'm Paul Hart. Episode Not Yet Out of the Woods. Stand by. One stood out. Of all the camps in the Midwest, one stood out. Guthrie Rusk Field Campus for outdoor education, a camp on the Rock River. As my parents, who were both educators, told me,
Paul, it was originally an artist colony, but these days it's a place the university trains future teachers, educators, and allows students to have a actual outdoor education experience. It's not like being on a farm, but at least you're outdoors. It's so well run. The sleeping accommodations are warm and clean and organized. The terrain and the trails around the camp are broad, vast. They're excellent, and it's run by these new young camp directors. A guy named Rusty and his wife, what is it?
Oh, Hilda June.
Hilda June. They are perfect for this type of thing. They both really embrace the outdoor education concept.
Oh, yeah, and the cafeteria has really great food.
and that was my dad's input. My 6th grade camp experience. Rusty and Hilda June. My 6th grade year, as 12-year-olds, we were finally getting our week at Guthrie Rusk Field Camp. So excited. When our class arrived, we stepped off the bus at Guthrie Rusk, and we felt that magical environment change. The magic. School outside. We met some new people as well. It's interesting meeting new people in life, and sometimes you recall their look, perspectives, or attitudes. For the new young camp directors, well, it turns out, to us at least, as kids, they weren't young. They were middle-aged. But to my parents, they were youngsters, we guessed. It didn't matter, though. I remember everything about that middle-aged couple. The camp directors, Rusty and Hilda June. They stood out as a couple that seemed to, well, they didn't bathe, number one, often, I guess. And Rusty stood about 5'5", a slouching 5'5", and he had scraggly, longish brown hair, and he usually gummed a long stem of freshly plucked grass, and it was hung casually out of his mouth. And if he wasn't wearing bib overalls, it was flannel. Lots and lots of flannel.
Oh yeah, Dig. Welcome to Camp Guthrie Rusk. Your sleeping bunk's yonder. The mess hall is that building there, yonder. And if you gotta pee, you kids use that righteous primo tree. We call it the piss tree. Out of sight.
Piss tree? What? Okay, it was a different time. Now Hilda June stood silently right next to Rusty with a big old basket of peas that she was shucking for the night's meal. A slight smile kind of reassured those teachers and students that all was okay. Now Hilda June always wore a peasant skirt. Multi-layers. It was like a skirt that was patchwork, so it had these varying pieces of old materials, old pieces of cloth sewn together. So when I imagine one of the pieces of cloth wore through, she would get another piece of cloth and she would sew that into the patchwork skirt. She wore these large rubber boots. Remember when you were kids, at least in my generation, you had these rubberized galoshes. She wore those rubber boots. They had no tread on them. She hiked in that skirt. She rappelled down the cliffs in that skirt, and she wore it in the cold of winter and in the heat of summer.
Yeah, my threads, the skirt, and a t-shirt. In the winter, the skirt and a sweatshirt. That's it, little dudes. That's me.
Now, it took me about 20 years of my life to determine and figure out that Rusty and his common-law wife, Hilda June, were leftover hippies from the 1960s and just loving their gig, their nature gig. And that was all right with us. Our teachers coordinated times and outdoor space with Rusty and Hilda June. Now, the rest of the time, we just saw the two of them, the camp directors, around the grounds, or at times we'd see them off in the distance, tending to their special crop in the very restricted North Field. Always smiling, directing campers, and just digging the outdoor nature vibe.
When you kids get back home after this out-of-sight outdoor education experience here, you're gonna like your teachers more, and your teachers are gonna dig you kids more. You know why?
No, we all answered.
'Cause you did all this together and survived it as a team. Oh, it's gonna blow your minds. You'll dig all the new vibes when this is over.
Well, that was confusing, but we trusted Rusty because our teachers put all their trust in Rusty, and he carried himself with this nature-fed confidence. So my 6th grade year, our week at Guthrie Rusk Camp found us doing basic geology, fishing, hiking, canoeing, nature relationships, poetry. As Rusty and Hilda June maintained their secret field crops during our days, we had to attend classes taught by our regular classroom teachers and some of the college-aged interns from a local university. The interns were great. Our teachers were great too, because we'd never seen our teachers out of their polyester teacher clothes. Seeing your pudgy female teachers in jeans and a tank top usually was enough to freak you out or at least make you lose your appetite briefly. We were provided breakfast, lunch, and dinner from the scenic cafeteria on this magical seeming bluff which overlooked the Rock River. Absolutely beautiful. Great hearty meals as well. And at first, we all wondered if outdoor education really meant outdoor survival. Is that why we were there? Maybe we thought, but no. It was more like existing, loving, and respecting nature.
Outdoor education.
Plus some survival. Our nights usually consisted of bonding and memories. I recall a good-sized crackling campfire outside and s'mores as the school's music teacher, Mrs. Henderson, suddenly just showed up after dinner, still in her teacher clothes.
Mrs. Henderson.
And we sang all the songs we knew outside. No piano, no guitar. We just sang them. It was happy. And at the same time, campfire, songs, s'mores, the sun sets slowly in the west. Nice. A memory if you're a kid. Laid back and just chilling, Rusty and Hilda June just stood there kind of glassy-eyed, slowly swaying left and slowly swaying right and smiling slightly. Still, they were comforting and then at the same time uncomfortable for all of us. All at the same time. Losing Margaret. Now I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in time. I was 12 when I went to camp, and now I'm 20 and at the university studying to be a teacher. I was attending college, as I said, and spending my junior year outdoor education week, which we all had to do in early December, from Wednesday through Saturday with my block of future teachers. Once again, I found myself back at Guthrie Rusk Field Camp campus. What is a block of teachers, you might be asking yourself? So I'm going to use the word block a lot. Well, very simply, once assigned into the education program, for us it was about 15 or 16 of us, as I remember, 11 females, 5 males. We all had every class together the next 2 years. Same people every day. And this had advantages and it had disadvantages. It's just the way it was. We also had a lead professor mentor, experienced Professor Margaret Sanderson. In her late 50s. She was blunt, Margaret was. She was reliable and 100% effective because you always knew where you stood with her. She was very clear and a great communicator. That's a good lesson to learn early in your life. Margaret tracked us through all of our classes and was familiar with us, and that familiarity helped her connect us more effectively with the outdoor education program. She knew all of our strengths. She knew most of our weaknesses. She was our leader. She was good, and I liked her. However, the week of camp that we were to go early in December, things changed. Professor Margaret Sanderson had been involved in a traumatic automobile accident. Damage had been done to her back. She left to recuperate. Now, our block all understood that she was injured, and we wished Margaret the best. We would miss her. Mr. Calhoun Grayson. Margaret's replacement was a much younger, less experienced man, small in stature, early 30s I'd say, sporting a balding pate and a sideways smile. He was a university teacher fresh out of a messy divorce. Mr. Calhoun Grayson. How did we know he was fresh out of a messy divorce? He shared that info with all the girls in our block.
I'm divorced.
They in turn shared that info with the 5 guys in the block. Therefore, we kept an eye on the girls' safety, and it turned out that Calhoun, he asked us to call him Cal.
Call me Cal, okay? Cal.
Was not a creeper. He was just kind of sad, and he made the choice, unfortunately, to share his personal life with his 20-year-old students. That didn't make it right, but it was a different time. That's all I can say. Junior year outdoor education experience. Now, as juniors, when we went to camp, we weren't going to be given students to teach yet, but this was the year that we were to observe, take classes out there, and be treated as if we were the students attending camp. In our senior year, it was our final year of undergraduate work. Our senior year, we would be the instructors, the interns. And actually, if you think about it, it's a great sequence for learning and then applying everything you've learned. Field campus, Guthrie Rusk. Now, I recall we did an awful lot in the 4 days that we were there at Guthrie Rusk. So far in the season, it was snowless that year. So we were in the great outdoors in what seemed like a very, very cold late fall week. We were taught how to teach things such as orienteering, rock climbing, plant study, animal study, geology, and plenty of games. the camp directors, Rusty and Hilda June. They were still there.
Hey.
But now they were older and a bit more grim, I noticed, and much more faded in flannel.
Tired.
But more on that later. Done in by Duck Duck Goose. Now, the simple game Duck Duck Goose involves all participants. If you played this in school, all participants stand in a circle, and the person that's it passes by each person and taps them on the shoulder and says, duck, 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 as they pass by. Until Goose is finally yelled and that person's tapped, and then that person tapped must chase the it person around the perimeter of the circle and try to tap them back. The chasee, I should say, tries to return and sit where the chaser had been sitting before. Simple game, right? Since teaching this game was the only teaching responsibility had by our new leader, Mr. Calhoun Grayson,
Call me Cal, okay?
we soon learned that he had no idea of how this game was played and had not learned it himself.
Duck, 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 goose.
When I was tapped by my friend Bill, I took off chasing him, as I was supposed to do, and Calhoun instructed Bill and I, uncharacteristically, when it was our turn, to run.
Man, run. Keep running.
So we did.
Run.
I must have run, seriously. I must have run and chased Bill for just under 10 minutes. Bill was thin and a runner. Me, I was, well, I don't know. I was more like a football player. So, I mean, I was football player-ish. So I just couldn't catch Bill. As hard as I tried, it wasn't going to happen. He was tall and lanky, and I was stout and 6 feet tall. So we were both out of breath and becoming exhausted. Now, something interesting happened. During this time, when this extended version of Duck Duck Goose was going on, Calhoun was laughing at us, and most of the girls began to complain and tell Calhoun that this was not how the game was played. It wasn't. They complained. And they were right. I knew it from playing Duck Duck Goose all the way back to when I was in kindergarten, frustrated at not being able to catch Bill. I just couldn't do it. In one last uber effort of frustration, I gathered every ounce of power left, and I ran that perimeter of that circle as fast as I could to catch Bill. I didn't catch him. But as I did that, I accidentally ran into Megan, one of the girls from our block, and she bounced off me and she fell into the circle. She was okay, but she wasn't happy.
What is wrong with you, you big oaf? Stupid ox? Big dumb idiot! Watch where you're going, lummox! Ow!
So sorry.
I felt terrible. I was embarrassed. I apologized to Megan.
You okay?
But Mr. Calhoun Grayson,
Call me Cal.
he made us
Everybody
quit.
stop.
Bill and I were both a bit miffed at Calhoun. It seemed like he just wanted to see the two of us run. A lot. And he got it. In a serious tone, Calhoun then called me over privately and said to me,
Why are you so thoughtless and cruel, Paul? Why? Why would you run into someone and purposely hurt them?
still out of breath, I was not in a great mood because of what had happened, and I had run into Megan. My response to Calhoun was, "It's Duck Duck Goose, Calhoun. Learn the rules to Duck Duck Goose."
Call me Cal, okay?
Thinking quickly, Calhoun just smiled and slowly responded, Yeah, that's right, Paul. That's what I wanted you to learn. You must always prepare before you teach. If you don't, something like this could happen.
Sure.
Connor sings bad stuff about former girlfriends. Now, after dinner that night, we were entertained in a small room with a grand, warm, blazing fireplace, and here was where my friend from Block, Connor O'Hennessy, sang and played guitar. We were entertained by Connor and warmed by the blazing fire, creamy hot chocolate, and graham crackers. Nice. My friend Connor from the block. Sounds like Jenny from the block. Connor from the block. My friend Connor from our education block was an interesting guy. He was kind of an outdoorsman. He was a woodsy type of guy, and he thrived in nature in a nature setting.
Hi, everybody. A captive audience, I see.
That night, Connor sang and played guitar for all 16 of us, plus Mr. Calhoun Grayson.
Call me Cal.
Connor played his set of self-composed songs. Now, I had heard most of Connor's originals prior to this, and I had seen him play in small bars in that small setting, back on campus. And between the two of us, between Connor and I used to joke with him that his set should be called, he was kind of a singer-songwriter type person, Bad Stuff About Connor's Former Girlfriends, because he had written from the heart and, that's what came out. I introduced Connor that way to our block. I said, okay, here we go tonight, everybody. We have our good friend from the block, the education block, our education block, Connor O'Hennessy, to entertain us with some original songs he's written. I've heard these songs and they're good. So, let's hear it for Connor. All right.
Sit down, you big oaf.
It was a great performance. It was a passionate performance. Connor sang from his heart, but I was aware that his lyrics and his content was uncomfortable for some of the girls. Now, there was nothing inappropriate. Now, some of the songs that he sang, well, all of his songs were from his perspective, the male perspective, Connor's perspective. The girls in our education block listened and were, well, I'd say indifferent is a good word to say. However, our new leader, Mr. Calhoun Grayson, really seemed to like these songs, and he clapped and he hooted it the loudest after each tune.
I gave you my heart, and you put me in the road. You took all my money from my pants. I never sold. What did I do wrong? You ate all my food.
Women are like that. Yeah.
I was happy all the time. You were in a mood.
Oh, yeah.
Just as we were leaving at the end of our night in front of the campfire, Rusty appeared at the door, and I couldn't help but notice how much he had changed since the last time I'd seen him when I was 12. Now, Rusty was older, of course, but now we've got this person who's changed. He's more grim, he's more serious. His casual, laid-back attitude was now more tense, and he had become very short with people. Short, kind of blunt answers. What had happened to change Rusty? I wondered. Grim-looking Rusty came in to tell us.
Attention campers, it might snow tomorrow. Dress warm.
The Quad Cities group.
Connor, let's go for a hike.
All right, man.
Now, before bed, it was about 10:30 p.m., Connor and I decided to take a walk. Now, there was another school attending camp on site. Students and teachers from the Quad Cities were in the Quonset cabins, and we did not have anything to do with them. See, we were there for an entirely different training experience. By this time, the Quad Cities students were asleep in the Quonset barracks, and the teachers were planning for the next day, we guessed. And so we entered the lodge where we all had our meals, and I immediately saw the Quad Cities teachers team of about 6 people. And boy, when we came in, could you feel the room? A very grim tone kind of like immersed itself within the room. And I saw a bottle of vodka, almost empty, sitting there among the teachers, as it turned out.
I feel sick.
And with good reason that bottle was empty. There was to be no liquor on the campus, so we guessed something had happened or something was going on. We walked up. Hey, hi,
Gentlemen.
what's going on? We're working on the other side of the campus from the university. You guys okay? I asked. Tommy's Total Coverage. Well, a teacher guy named Mr. Burton retold what had happened. And it had just happened. And I remind you, this is a true story, so it's not a story here for the squeamish.
Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm Stephen Burton. Yeah.
Well, hi, Mr. Burton.
We had something unusual just happen, and I'm trying to get over it and deal with it. Okay, let me try and tell this. Around lights out time for the kids at 8:30, just a little while ago tonight, I was in the boys' Quonset, and all the boys had gone to sleep for about an hour, and I sat in the office at the end of the Quonset barracks, and okay, there was a knock on the door, and one of our boys, it was a boy named Tommy, and he was wearing these race car pajamas.
Mr. Burton, I don't feel good.
Feeling well, Tommy. You're not feeling well. But before I got my last teacherly grammar correction out of my mouth, Tommy's body responded. It jerked as a gassy, loud, liquid, explosive burst exploded from the back pants of Tommy's race car pajama bottoms.
Yelled Tommy.
Get in the bathroom, Tommy! Get in the bathroom! And with that, I pushed Tommy into the boys' bathroom, and the diarrhea had just continued, and I yelled, Tommy, pajamas off! Sit on the toilet! Before Tommy's spinning body found the commode, my push had made Tommy spin one time, and one time only. Tommy, he was able at that point to pull down his race car pajama bottoms. Those race car bottoms now were destroyed with excrement. Poor kid, he was so sick. Well, Tommy finished his business for the moment on the commode. Then I made sure Tommy showered and put on the emergency clothes kept in the storage area. Fortunately, none of the other boys woke up during this ordeal. I couldn't believe that. So, nobody heard the loud explosive event and us yelling.
Thanks, Mr. Burton.
Blessed by that. I was glad about that. It'll keep Tommy free from any teasing and mocking by the other boys tomorrow morning. Feeling better, okay, Tommy went back to sleep and he dozed off immediately. Thinking my troubles were complete, I checked the bathroom and I hadn't realized the total coverage done by Tommy's intestinal fortitude. Man, I tell you, I could have taught a math lesson in that bathroom on velocity, volume, and speed. There was human feces all over the bathroom walls. The velocity and explosive momentum had created this poop masterpiece. The walls, the mirrors, the stall, the doors, the floor, the toilet area. In the middle of the bathroom floor laid a filthy, destroyed, now brown feces-soaked pair of race car pajama bottoms. I didn't leave or try and get help because I didn't want any other boy to wake up, so I just worked alone and in silence. I had to clean up.
Mr. Burton went on to tell Connor and me.
I had to gather my guts, I guess, and clean all that up quietly while gagging. I practically drank that entire bottle of vodka just to deal with cleaning up that toxic mess. To clean, I only found rags, paper towels, and window glass cleaner. The smell was debilitating, I tell you, and the sight of all the bodily contents was overwhelming, and my own gag reflex triggered constantly.
Connor said,
That's terrible. You okay?
I can't make the smell go away in my nose. It won't leave my nose. Okay, but, I'll survive.
Mr. Burton, what did you do with the race car pajama bottoms?
Oh, hey, I just scooped those things up on my bare hands and I threw them outside the Quonset door as far as I could hurl them.
Connor asked,
Mr. Burton, is that common, that type of extreme sickness?
No, not at all, but this was unique, one of a kind, but I'll tell you what, I never want to go through that again, and I'm sure Tommy doesn't either.
Wide-eyed and speechless, Connor and I walked to our room and quietly we turned in for the night. The next day, blizzard begins. By the next morning, we weren't just snowed in, but we would be trapped at the camp for an extra 2 days with no roads out, nothing plowed or plowable. So, the next morning, as Connor, Bill, Mr. Calhoun Grayson,
Don't call me Calhoun.
and I walked to the cafeteria, we saw Mr. Burton lining his boys up outside to go to breakfast. And I wondered which one was Tommy, and I wondered if Tommy felt better. Now, because of the snowfall, the once brownish grounds were now a fresh, snowy white color. Now, at camp, students are encouraged to safely explore and ask questions, and I heard a large boy ask Mr. Burton,
Hey, Mr. B, what's that over there?
Bill, Connor, and I all looked to see what the boy was seeing. What looked like a colorful piece of cloth sticking out of the snow just about an inch. I noticed that it wasn't just a piece of cloth, but rather it was a cloth with a race car printed on it.
Billy, don't pick that up.
We watched as a large boy walked over and pulled that entire piece of cloth out of the snow. Pajama bottoms. Dirty pajama bottoms.
What's this?
The boy suddenly froze as he got a pungent whiff of what he was holding. Screamed about 15 boys all at once.
What is that smell?
Although Tommy's incident was not revealed, his pajama bottoms were. Learning how. The remainder of our time at Guthrie Rusk Field campus, we had indoor classroom learning situations, mostly because of the snow. We had a guest speaker, an expert from the Outward Bound program, a weather survivalist named Paul Jefferson spoke to us. Perfect for that snowy day and the winds and the blizzard and the freezing ice that were coming along with this weather thing. Things I learned from that guy I still use today, and I'll give you an example. To keep your feet warm on a frigid day, most people might wear, 2 layers of socks, 2 types of socks. Cotton socks on the inside and another pair of socks on the outside. Sometimes it's wool on the outside. Wrong, we found out.
Nope.
You wear the wool heavy socks on the inner layer closest to your feet, to your skin. Then you put on the cotton sock or the secondary sock after that. Now your foot will have more space to breathe and it will actually stay warmer, even in the coldest temperatures. And we learned a lot about surviving our weekend snow event from this man. Survival strategies that took us into our own adulthood. Sleeping outside in the blizzard. Now that night, survivalist Paul, Mr. Calhoun Grayson,
Don't call me Calhoun.
and I volunteered to dig a dugout where we would lay 4 sleeping bags. We got to test out 4 state-of-the-art sleeping bags that promised to keep you warm even in that snow blizzard. So we slept outside all night in a frigid, wind-gusty snowstorm, which became a blizzard eventually. After 15 minutes, Mr. Calhoun Grayson got up and walked back to his room.
Where are you going, Mr. Grayson?
Call me Cal. Cold out here.
Said our weary leader. As for me, I slept warm and comfortable like a log, and in the morning, our sleeping bags and us in them were all buried with snow. Even the slight opening for our faces was filled with snow. And just a few head shakes back and forth, we cleared and exposed our faces. And later back inside, I was able to actually thank Mr. Jefferson.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Jefferson, for this experience. It was great.
No problem, sure.
Shut up, you big oaf. Caveman.
Not out of the woods yet. Finally, there was still one thing left, one thing unresolved for me at Camp Guthrie Rusk. I needed to know just what had happened. to the spirit and the love for nature once passionately held by Rusty and Hilda June. I explained to Rusty in a one-on-one conversation that I had been a kid at the camp 9 years older when he and Hilda June were new hires as camp directors, and he seemed stoic and unresponsive. And I said, "So Rusty, how have things changed around here?" Now serious and uber-focused and kind of emotionless, Rusty raised an eyebrow and he said,
Hilda June and I are building an out-of-sight survival bunker just north of the property, just in case.
"In case of what?" I asked. Rusty leaned in just inches from my face and growled,
"If you don't know, you don't have the skills to survive a nuke holocaust anyway, sonny boy."
Now, no one likes to be talked down to, and sonny boy?
Funny boy?
Coming from the former peace, love, and nature hippie dude? Come on, that wasn't Rusty. Apparently, Rusty had hit the wall somewhere, somehow, and I realized that question was as far as I could, or maybe as far as I should, question him. These two happy nature lovers somehow had turned the corner. So what's our goal here? What did we learn? What did I learn? There's a lot of content in this episode, but I'll say this. Over the years, people do change, and usually that's a good thing. I had refound Rusty and Hilda June, but now they were having difficulties. They were not quite out of the woods, while actually living in the woods. In good times and bad times, I always remember this radio broadcaster named Paul Harvey and what he had once said, and I'm paraphrasing. In times like these, it's always important to remember that there have always been times like these. Here's to Rusty and Hilda June. For Life's Learning Curve, and Tommy, I'm Paul Hart.
Subscribe to Life's Learning Curve at lifeslearningcurve.org and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser. Season 4, Episode 61, Not Yet Out of the Woods of Life's Learning Curve podcast was put together by producer Sebastian T. Dog, executive producer Paul Hart, technical director Orrin Cleveland, editor Paul Richards, voice talent on today's show Shirley Verlaire, audio and sound Riley Hart, production manager Heidi Cerner, studio equipment manager Don Compton. Hey, you can find us and listen to us just about everywhere podcasts are heard, and visit our website lifeslearningcurve.org and subscribe, read a blog, or shoot us an email. This episode has imaginative voice recreations. To protect the privacy of others, some names have been changed and characters conflated. Episode 61, Not Yet Out of the Woods. I'm Paul Hart, and we will probably be back here soon with more stories and guests from Life's Learning Curve. We're clear.